Let's take a deep dive into the NFC South. This is a division that's been dominated in recent years by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That, of course, goes back to the Tom Brady days, but coming off of a couple division wins over the last two seasons with Baker Mayfield at the helm. A big change, though, for Tampa Bay, losing offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. He is now the head man in Jacksonville. Saw Tampa Bay rip off 10 wins a year ago, despite some injuries throughout the season. They, of course, fell to the Commanders in the first round of the playoffs. That win total coming in at 9.5 at the DK Sportsbook, minus 115 to the under. You know, one big thing that we've been monitoring in the fantasy space, Jeff, and it certainly applies to betting as well, a big injury to begin the year. Tristan Wirfs, one of the best tackles in football, on the PUP list, expected to miss at least 4 games to begin the year. Is that something that has caused you to recalibrate your evaluation of the Bucs?
It has. And I think this is a fascinating team. I think they're a smartly run team. I think, being able to go from, let's go get Tom Brady. Let's turn that into a thing, making it work, and then redoing it on the fly and not, resuscitating Baker Mayfield's career and turning him into a plus quarterback. Just a fascinating story. Really smart team. But one of the big things, I think the underwritten, kind of the underrated portion of that story, though, is that they've had this elite offensive line, Tristan Wirfs being the cornerstone of that offensive line, maybe one of the 3 best left tackles in the game. And keep in mind, all we know right now is it's a minimum of 4 games. It could be longer. But if you start the year on the PUP list, you miss those 4 games. Those 4 games include a huge divisional game at Atlanta, a game at Houston week 2, home against the Jets, and then home against the Eagles in week 4. At least 2 of those teams will have a pretty good pass rush, and Atlanta's trying to have a better one. The Jets could be decent, but we know the Houston and Philly games, they're going to have their hands full with that. I just think it's fascinating. I think it's a fascinating story to be able to reload with the third offensive coordinator in 3 years. The schedule gets pretty good late. Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, 3 home games in a row beginning on November 30th, at Carolina, at Miami versus Carolina again. So 4 out of 6 games at home in that stretch, all winnable games. Yet I'm still looking at this here, Nick, as an under for me. And I think it's that early part of the schedule. Also, road games at Seattle, Detroit, Buffalo, and the Rams, even after that first 4-game stretch. So they basically have to go, I think they have to go like 5 and 6 through that early stretch, maybe 6 and 5. And I think they could get there, but I don't think they're going to go 5 and 6 or 6 and 5 to get there. I think they're going to really struggle early on. So I like the under on the Bucs this season.
Jeff, we talked yesterday about some wide receivers that were high and low on this season for fantasy. I'm out on Mike Evans at cost, at least.
Right.
There's a spot at which I will take Mike Evans, of course. But I'll ask you very simply, is this the year that the 1,000-yard streak ends? And I will also tell you that no player in year 12 of their career, no wide receiver that is, has put up 1,000 yards in year 12 since Larry Fitzgerald all the way back in 2015.
I think it might be. And the books seem to think so, too, with the way they're setting the line. 950 and a half is the number at DK. You can find it as low as 925 and a half on FanDuel, minus 114 each way on that one there. So that kind of tells you the expectation level is there. And again, Evans is a guy that goes for deeper patterns, right? That means more time for plays to develop, which means Tristan Wirfs' absence could be a bigger deal.
The Atlanta Falcons come in with an 8.5 win total, plus 125 to the over on DK. One of my best bets earlier this week, Atlanta to make the playoffs in the NFC at plus 155. Jeff, we could talk about Michael Penix. We could talk about how much we like Drake London, but I think if we're looking at this win total, if we're looking at the Falcons as a potential division winner, I think it's going to come down to the defense. This has been one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL consistently over the last few years, 31st in sacks a year ago. But we saw the Falcons make some pretty drastic steps in the draft to address that.
Yeah, Jalen Walker taken with their normal first-round pick, and then they traded up with the Rams to get another first-round pick, gave up their first-round pick in 2026 for James Pierce, a player that not everyone buys, but did have a good season at Tennessee last year. But they think they got 2 really good pass rushers in the process there. We'll see about that. They certainly are investing as if that for that purpose, though. So we'll see. I do like, but I'm going to throw in one thing real quick on the Falcons. I do like my Drake London props. Over 150 and a half everywhere but DK. DK, it's a little higher, but DK, but You can find a 150.5, and the best juice is at BetMGM at -110.
Jeff, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers team with a win total sitting at 6.5, -130 to the over. There is some Panthers optimism this season after what we saw over the second half of 2024. But look, we could talk about the Falcons and their struggles in terms of the pass rush. Hard to overstate how bad the Panthers were defensively last year. I mean, historically bad against the run, gave up the fourth most rushing yards ever in NFL history, the most given up in the last 45 seasons. This is a team that also gave up the most points ever. And, playing an extra game, 17-game schedule, that's going to be a part of it. But I think the Panthers are moving in the right direction, Jeff. I don't know that I'm ready to bet the over on this win total. I think this is still a roster that is in a multi-year retooling process. And then they've started to accomplish some of that, but there are just so many holes to fill, especially on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. They weren't able to get Milton Williams to take their money. At one point in free agency, it looked like they're going to get him too. But they spent a lot on free agency on that defense there, especially in the middle. 2 defensive tackles, Tershawn Wharton being the big one there. Spent on Patrick Jones, on Trevon Mooring, former Raider there in the secondary. So they really spent on their defense. Is it enough? Not quite sure. I'm with you, Nick. I don't think I'm betting the under on them, but I'm also not going out of my way to bet the over. One player I will bet the over on is Chuba Hubbard, though. Offensively, he ran for 10 touchdowns last year. They signed Rico Dowdle to be his backup. I don't view Dowdle as a big threat around the goal line. Just 2 rush TDs last year, just 5 attempts inside the 5-yard line. They don't really want to kind of force. At least Dallas didn't want to try to force him around the goal line. I think Chuba Hubbard, who was pretty efficient there in that respect, I think he's a good bet to reach his over 6.5 rush TDs, plus 120 on the over. As always, it's a little bit of a bet on health. And I got that rush prop at Caesars, by the way.
I signed him to a new contract last year. I think Chuba Hubbard is one of those guys that, 2-3 years from now, when the Panthers are hopefully, truly an ascending team. I don't know if he's on the roster, but I think in the short term, he's still a huge piece in that offense. And I will say, Panthers' schedule is pretty reasonable. They have some games early in the season where they'll have a chance to get off to a good start. Jacksonville, Arizona, Atlanta, New England, Miami, those first 5 weeks of the season. Probably feel like you got to win 2 or 3 of those to get off on the right foot. Jeff, we've saved the best for last. The New Orleans Saints, a 5-12 outfit last season. I have already played the under on the 5.5 wins for New Orleans this season, -120 to the under over at DK. Derek Carr has retired, at least for now. We expect Tyler Shuck to see the majority of the starts this season. It's bleak. It's bleak for me right now in New Orleans, Jeff. Really only 2 guys that we're concerned about on this team in terms of fantasy.
Probably Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave. I mean, I think you could squint and make a case for Rashid Shaheed, maybe Devin Neal in dynasty leagues, because at some point, Kamara's probably got to have, who's been hurt nearly every season of his career, at least a little bit. I think is someone that you got to consider as needing replacement there. So that's maybe someone I'm drafting. But yeah, I don't understand the Saints. I won't belabor the point. They might be drafting another quarterback next year and wasting after spending pick 40 this year on Tyler Shuck. Let's stick with the Bucs to have over 4.5 division wins. They're 4-2 last year in the NFC South. Loss to the Falcons. Remember both of those games against the Falcons. That was when Kirk Cousins was still good, and we liked him on the quarterback. Plus 150, Nick, to go over 4.5 division wins this year. Player to pass it.
Pretty easy pass for me. Yeah. I don't think there's a whole lot of value here. I certainly need better than plus 150 to invest. I think there are other ways to kind of skirt around this market where you can generate some more value. I mean, Bucs won the division last year. They went 4-2, so they went under this number. Both losses, of course, came to the Atlanta Falcons, like you said, and it's completely conceivable that this team could be tripped up by Carolina in one of those matchups. I don't know about the Saints. I think you do get 2 free wins against New Orleans, so that does give you a nice baseline. But then you got to go 3-1 against Atlanta and Carolina, and I think this could be another year where they struggle against the Falcons, and again could see the Panthers tripping them up. So this is a pretty easy pass for me on that over 4.5.
Yeah, I agree with the logic there. It's a shame we're not going to see a classic Evans Lattimore Bucs Saints game this year. Some of the highest brand of entertainment you can get in the NFC South. Going 2-0 for the Falcons against the Panthers, plus 175. Play it or pass it.
So initially, I wanted to play this, Jeff, but did some digging on the history between these two teams. So you go back a decade. Atlanta's 13-7 straight up against Carolina in that span, but they have not swept the Panthers, who have been a very bad team multiple times in this range since 2019. They've alternated wins and losses for the last 10 meetings, and Carolina is actually currently favored when these teams meet in Charlotte in Week 3. I believe they're 1.5-point favorites. Atlanta, of course, favored at home for that second matchup. Now, if you were to parlay those two games and just take Atlanta on the money line, and most books will not actually allow you to do this, but the current money line prices on a parlay would come out to plus 227. So I think when you compare that to the plus 175, not quite enough value here. This is not what we would call a positive EV bet, Jeff. So I think Carolina can be frisky enough to potentially take one of those games, particularly if they catch them at home in Week 3. So I will pass on this one. Jeff, my turn to throw a couple your way. We'll start with the Carolina Panthers, and we're taking a look at rookie wide receiver Tet McMillan. Tet McMillan to put up 1,000 plus receiving yards as a rookie this season, plus 275. Play it or pass it.
I am going to play it. I think it's going to be really close. I think it'll come down to the wire here. As you alluded to in the notes, since 2010, 17 rookie wide receivers have gone for 1,000 plus yards. We had 3 last year. 2023, we only had 1. But I think of the rookie receivers this year, I think Tet McMillan, who was drafted first among them, I'm not counting Travis Hunter. I think he's his own special type of player, but I think he's the most likely of this rookie class to do so. In part because I look at the competition on the team. I don't really see anybody else on this team being an alpha. Adam Thielen was kind of that guy once he came back from injury, once Bryce Young kind of established that connection with him. I think as long as McMillan stays healthy, he's the guy I think will get the leading number of targets there. I think he just gets over that 1,000-yard threshold. So I'll play it, but maybe like a half a unit bet. It wouldn't be like a strong bet for sure.
The Carolina Panthers to have exactly 3 wins 5 weeks into the season. This one at plus 285. Are we playing it?
We are not playing it. These are all reasonable games for the Panthers. At the Jaguars, there'll be 3-point underdogs there currently. At the Cardinals, 4.5-point dogs. Home against the Falcons, as you alluded to, already favored in this one, minus 1.5 though. At the Pats, plus 3.5. Home against the Dolphins, plus 1.5. Okay, so they have to overcome the odds in at least 2 of those games to get to the 3 wins. I would think that you need like a price of, especially to get exactly 3. I think I need something like around 4 or 5 to 1 to be able to get that exacta, if you will. So I'm going to pass it.
Play it or pass it. Regular season points scored under 331.5 for the Saints.
Yeah, play it, and maybe a strong play it there. They scored 338 last year, put up 91 in their first 2 games. They're worse this year. They're probably either going to have Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler at QB. Maybe they'll go back and forth between the 2 of them. The wide receiver core won't be as decimated as it was last year, most likely. But this is a team that I think is going to really be on the struggle bus this year.